Trevor Lawrence is divisive, as he finished tied for 16th in expected points added, which if you don't know what that stat means, I have a video that breaks it down. It's awesome because it can be used to evaluate quarterbacks, offenses, and defenses, so it's a do-it-all stat. In addition to being 16th in expected points added, though, he was also 16th in quarterback rating, so he's super consistent in his placement in these advanced stats. With that said, he had a very poor supporting cast, ranking 28th in my metric that evaluates that based on the PFF rankings of his offensive line and receivers. So I think when you factor that all together, he ends up being a roughly top 10 quarterback, officially number 11 for me. At backup quarterback, Mac Jones is a very high-end option as he was a legitimate starter caliber quarterback in 2 of his 3 years in the pros so far, so he should be more than alright as a backup. So if Lawrence does go down for any period of time, which you obviously don't want to see, the Jaguars should be pretty well equipped to deal with that because Jones really is a premier backup option. He could still be a starter, in my opinion, a low-end one at that, but he is a very viable backup option at least. As we shift to the supporting cast, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like and subscribe because I'll be breaking down every team in the NFL if I haven't already broken them down already. With that said, the offensive line for the Jaguars was very poor as they ranked 29th in pass block win rate and 27th in run block win rate. The only difference from last year to this year is a pretty notable one, going from the poor Luke Fortner to the solid Mitch Morse. That won't make the biggest difference as it's only one change, and they really probably needed more than just one. But Anton Harrison will hopefully progress in his second year as well, marking a clear upgrade in their line as a whole. Depth-wise, Walker Little is a great swing tackle, and Luke Fortner is a solid bench interior lineman, even if he isn't a good starter. Additionally, they drafted Javon Foster in the 4th for some more interior depth. Since 2019, rookie interior offensive line averaged a poor 53 PFF grade, which would be good for 95th out of 128 interior offensive linemen. So he's not a great option, more than likely, but he's at least something to give them some depth. Weapons-wise, the Jaguars are actually pretty well equipped now. Christian Kirk was super solid and balanced as he was 22nd in yards per game and 32nd in yards per reception, which shows that he is able to move the sticks with frequency, but also win deep downfield also. So he's an underrated receiver. He's very interesting because he was initially thought of as being super overpaid, but now he kind of looks like a bargain deal compared to some of the other deals that other similarly skilled receivers are getting. Speaking of different values for receivers, Gabe Davis was brought in as a free agent, and he's an exciting addition as he was 60th in yards per game, which isn't great, but he was a much better 6th in yards per reception, marking one of the best deep threats in the NFL, even if he is a bit of a one-trick pony. That one trick is very good, as analytics would suggest that winning deep downfield is the most efficient way to play offense in the modern NFL, and he can do that with very good frequency, as he has the speed to win deep downfield, and he also has the big body to win contested catches, even if he doesn't have the most reliable hands. He's, I believe, 6'4". He's a massive body, so he can bring down contested catches, even if, again, he doesn't have the most consistent catching. Lastly, Brian Thomas Jr. was drafted 23rd in the first this year and was my 22nd ranked player. Drafting a wide receiver this highly is usually a good thing for offenses, as since 2019, rookie wide receivers have the highest PFF grade out of any position with a 73 PFF grade. That ranked 39th out of 102 wide receivers. Thomas could very well be wide receiver 1 or 2 for Jacksonville by the end of the year, because he does have great athletic ability, and like Gabe Davis, he has the capacity to win deep downfield with regularity, so he has a ton of value to offer. Speaking of offering a lot, Evan Ingram is a solid tight end or big slot, ranking 4th in yards per game among tight ends and 28th in yards per reception among tight ends, which is kind of backwards because he's one of the most athletic tight ends in the NFL. So you would think that he would win deep downfield and have a higher yards per reception relative to other tight ends. But either way, he has a lot of value as he can be a consistent chain mover, which still does have value even if it's not quite as valuable as winning deep downfield. Another person they have that has a lot of value is Travis Etienne. He was 17th out of 59 halfbacks in PFF grade. The only depth the Jaguars have is at tight end with Luke Farrell being a very solid tight end too. They lack wide receiver and running back depth though, so they need to stay healthy if they want to be competent in the weapons realm. Shifting to the defense, the Jaguars should actually be pretty well set at cornerback. Ronald Darby ranked 36th out of 127 in PFF grade. He has great athleticism still at 30, but isn't particularly good against the run, which is fine if you can cover well as a cornerback and not defend the run. That's a fair trade-off. Darby is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated players in the NFL because he's signed to a bargain deal and isn't that highly thought of by most people. But as evident by his PFF grade, he is still a very solid cornerback. Tyson Campbell also has the potential to be very solid. He was graded 75th out of 127 by PFF. He is one of the best run defending corners in the league, so he balances out Darby. But he struggles a bit in coverage despite having the size at 6'1" and the athletic profile of someone who'd be good in coverage. I believe he was banged up this year though, so that was part of his issue. He's been good in the past, so I have hope for him. And interestingly enough, Darnell Savage is going to be their nickel cornerback, at least according to the current depth chart that I'm seeing from our lads. He was 15th out of 95 safeties this past season, and he's going to transition to nickel corner. Savage is very balanced, being good against the run and pass, so he should be a good nickel corner because their defending the run actually does have some value, so he should be a good contributor. At safety, they are solid at free safety and a bit of a question mark at strong safety. Andrew Sisko was 34th out of 95 safeties and has hovered there throughout his 3-year career, which is good because it's hard to be consistent as a defensive back. It's just so finicky year to year with different coverage schemes. But he's been consistently good. Antonio Johnson, their strong safety, didn't play enough snaps to get a PFF ranking, but he was solid in his limited time, so he does have some capacity to be a good contributor. It's just a bit of a question mark as to how reliable he can be. Depth-wise, Andrew Wingard is a great third safety, but will miss significant time due to injury. And Jerryon Jones was a third-rounder this year that could be a solid nickel backup, too. Since 2019, the average third-round rookie cornerback averages a 63 PFF grade, which would be good for 76 out of 133 corners that played 20% or more of snaps. So he could be a solid contributor. But again, it's always a question mark with rookie contributors that especially aren't first or second round picks. So it's hard to say what they have exactly in him, but he could be a nice depth piece. Shifting to the defensive line, the Jaguars should have one of the stronger defensive lines in the league. Josh Hines-Allen is an absolute superstar and finished 5th out of 122 in edge pressures. He's also really good against the run, so though he might not always be talked about like he is in the elite of the elite, He truly is. Trayvon Walker still has a lot of developing to do, but he was tied for 22nd in edge pressures, which is really solid. Despite being billed as an awesome run defending prospect, he's actually struggled a bit in that facet, so he needs to develop a good bit in that regard, but he's on a nice pace. He's, I think, been better than he was advertised as, even though he was the number 1 overall pick. He had a ton of room to develop, and he's actually kind of hit the ground running with some proficiency. I still would have rather had Aiden Hutchinson over him because I think Hutchinson is just truly an elite player already, and Walker is a really solid pass rusher, but just not quite up to Hutchinson's ability, and it's hard to say if he ever will be. Either way, though, Walker, a very good pass rusher in his own right, and could be a great run defender as well because he has just the most freakish athleticism you'll ever see for an edge defender. Arik Armstead, I'm not sure if it's Arik or Eric, was 25th out of 142 in defensive interior pressures, but he missed 5 games, so he should have been far higher. He's about average as a run defender too, so he is one of the best defensive interiors in the league. He was a steal from the 49ers. The Niners, I think, messed up in letting him go, but he's a great addition for the Jaguars. Roy Robertson Harris was also 25th in defensive interior pressures, but that's where he belongs as he played the whole year. He's pretty good against the run, so they have a really nice defensive interior. And depth-wise, Adam Gotsis and second-rounder Mason Smith are all the depth that Jacksonville has, and they're both interior players. Gotsis is a premier run defender that struggles to generate pressure, and Smith, inversely, has been a good college pass rusher but poor run defender, so they have a good balance at least. Since 2019, rookie defensive interior average a 56 PFF grade when drafted in the second round, which would rank as 87th out of 142 defensive interior. So Smith should be a solid contributor early on. That's about all they have, though, so again, they need to stay healthy on the edges, particularly, because they just don't really have good depth options there. Now for the stars of the Jaguars show, the linebackers. Devin Lloyd was 14th out of 82 linebackers in PFF grade. He's a monster run defender, already one of I'd say the 5 best run defending linebackers in the league, and is more than solid in coverage too. And Foyesade Oluokun was 21st in PFF grade, and is overall a total beast. He's good as a run defender, very good as a pass rusher, and great in coverage, so he offers a lot of versatility, and he just has no weaknesses. So they have one of the, I'd say, 3 best linebacking duos in the league. As far as depth is concerned, Chad Muma has been alright, and that's about it for the linebackers. So they really would see a drop-off if either Lloyd or Oluokun got hurt. But Muma is a competent third linebacker, so when they do go into their base defense, which really isn't the base defense anymore since nickel is the base defense for every team, but if they go into their base defense being a 4-3, they have at least a competent third in Muma, or again, if somebody gets hurt, which hopefully doesn't happen, they have a reliable replacement at least. In all, the Jaguars are very unrefined for being a playoff contending team. Lawrence is on the cusp of eliteness. Their offensive line is extremely poor, and their weapons overlap a bit with Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. being similar deep threats. They do have a lot of skill for their weapons, though. Defensively, their line can wreak havoc with the best of them, with Josh Hines Allen and Arik Armstead both being elite, but they don't have a tertiary rusher to complement them yet, unless Trayvon Walker takes a moderate step forward as a run defender and refines himself a little bit more as a pass rusher. The defensive backs are good, but there's question marks around Darnell Savage as a nickel. Tyson Campbell has been up and down, and Antonio Johnson has very limited experience. Their linebacker core is as good as anybody's, though, so they overall have a ton of highs and some lows, too. Those are my thoughts on the Jaguars. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section, and also be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL content.